Right, welcome back to another episode of Testing the Tips. Really interesting one, and it's something that we all struggle with, hitting drivers straight. It can be a huge challenge. We've got a tendency to either fade the ball, a lot of us, or hook the ball, and getting the ball straight down the middle would be an absolute bonus. But there are often parts that we don't understand, and we don't understand the reasoning and logic as to why we might push, fade, pull, hook, whatever you want to call it, everything but hit the ball straight. And that's what we're going to do in today's video. Don't forget, I am the average golfer, and I'm testing tips from fellow golf YouTubers that I find really interesting and could potentially improve your game and mine. This one is from, well, the man that sits very much at the top of the tier in golf YouTube tuition. That is, of course, Danny Maud, and Danny looks at some interesting elements that, like I said, will help us, hopefully, hit the ball straighter with driver in hand. Right, okay, we'll switch up into this angle to explain what comes next, and that is Danny's explanation as to us understanding the problem. And I like that because then you've got a better understanding of how to resolve that problem with the drill we're about to look at. I've got some tees created into a little bit of an arc which will come into the drill later on in the video, but for now, what is going wrong? Well, we've got to understand what we're doing. The swing is we create a circle within the swing, and the swing arc, and within that arc there is a center point of that arc, and that center point within the swing is, if I draw a direct line under my armpit to the club face, then that is the center of the swing, the center of the circle, the center of the arc. Danny explains that if we hit the ball ahead, I suppose, of to the left of center, then we're going to, depending on what the club face is doing, we're either going to hit the ball to the left if it's a closed club face. If it's open, we're going to hit a fade. If we move that to the other position and right of centre, again, depending on the club face position, we could block outright, or we could close that club face and hit a hook. So, understanding where your club head is throughout that swing arc, and it's more to do with where the ball position is throughout that swing arc, is key to understanding how we fix that, because we've got to make sure we understand where the centre of that arc is. That's the first point. So we understand the problem. What is the fix? So you've probably already gotten a little bit of an understanding. This is largely due to ball position, and it's so important because what you're going to see is some results that really show the difference between getting this right or getting it wrong. So when we're setting up to hit driver, as we know, most of us will understand, at least anyway, the ideal position is inside the left heel. Why is it inside the left heel? Well, if you look at my setup now, which is pretty square, we've got a position that is just inside the left heel, which is at the center of my swing. Don't forget, that's pretty much in line with my inside of my left armpit. So we're in a decent setup right now. Then what happens, and what we've got to be careful of, and this is a really interesting one because you see a lot of tuition that would sort of encourage what I'm about to suggest, but you've got to be very careful with it. And that is the fact, in this driving position, you'll often see us looking to tilt our shoulders at an angle, which gives us a potential uphill blow. The problem with that is if we over-exaggerate that, we all of a sudden have moved our centre of our swing under the left armpit to way back in the stance. So we've gone from up here, tilting the shoulders, and we've moved that position that we're trying to adopt. So you've got to be very careful with what you do there. So back to our setup position, relatively comfortable with where I'm at. You're then going to take your driver, stick it in the middle of your chest into your sternum, and then what you're going to do is take a slight tilt and lean. That will mean that the club head will point towards your left heel. Putting the golf club back into position, you'll see that our centre is remained the same, but we've still got that slight tilt. So don't over-exaggerate that move to the right and move your centre of your swing. Get that club head into your sternum, make a slight tilt so that it's pointing to the left heel, and that's all that is required. Don't over-exaggerate it, otherwise it goes massively wrong. I'm going to hit the ball in that position, and let's see what happens first of all in terms of some key parameters. So all I'm going to concentrate on first of all is did we hit the ball straight? Now what's interesting about that is we've hit the ball to left of target, but what you'll notice is that club path and attack angle, and more importantly maybe club path, has stayed almost neutral, almost 0 degrees. So I've managed to pull that golf ball, and that's face to path that has caused that problem. So me closing that face has caused me to go to the left of target. But effectively, by retaining that position, we've ended up meeting the ball at the centre of our swing. That in itself has meant that we've hit the ball straight. So we've eliminated any swing curvature being left to right, right to left. Now what I'm going to do is the next stage that Dan looks at and demonstrates what happens when we move that ball position. And first of all, I'm going to move it away forward in the stance, away from centre, and let's see what impact it has so we understand what this is actually doing. Right, so what I've done is just set that ball up now to where, like I said, this was centre. You imagine if you start to tee the ball up, way up in front onto your left foot almost. And all we've done, that means moving the ball probably 4 or 5 inches forward. Now all of a sudden, I already feel like I'm going to swing this perhaps over to the left-hand side. We've got that slight shoulder tilt again, and let's see what happens with the ball forward in that stance. Now it seems as though that's gone high, which it has, and all of a sudden we've got swing curvature, which is exactly as we'd expect, and that's me meeting the ball with an open club face, and all of a sudden you look at the club path now, coupled with the face to path, and basically we've got an open club face that is slicing across the ball. The only thing that changed in those two swings, the swing was the same. I didn't change anything in terms of going backwards or forward. The only thing that changed was the ball position, and that's the kind of impact it had from a shot that was down the left-hand side, but effectively no ball curvature, to something that has really swung out from left to right. We'll do exactly the same. I'm going to place it back of stance, so a few inches back of the centre, and let's see again what impact it has. This is centre. We're going to move it back to here, and all of a sudden now I feel like, and this is a big, I think this is an important bit to understand. When we talk about centre of our swing, or centre of our arc, our circle, I'm assuming that is centre of the sternum, not centre of is underneath my armpit. And again, that might be something else you're confused with, because this feels like centre of my swing because it's centre of my chest, centre of my setup. But all of a sudden we've moved from this position here, we've moved again 4 or 5 inches backwards. Let's see what happens with that ball position. One thing it did feel, first of all, was extremely difficult to get the club head through because it felt sort of behind me. So that caused me all kinds of issues in terms of being comfortable on the ball, never mind anything else. In actual fact, club path wasn't too bad. Face to path, not too bad. But I think by mere virtue of the fact that we were slightly sort of open when we come into that ball, for me, it was more of a block. Right, so the end, where do we go to with this? We understand where that position is. What we've got to start understanding is a feeling within the swing arc as to where the bottom is of that circle, where the centre of that circle is. For me, straight away, you know, it may sound pretty basic to you, but for me, it not being in the centre of my chest is something that I didn't perhaps quite understand. So that's something I've learned from the video alone. That's a position I would say is quite a decent driver position right now. I then, like I said, have got a slight tilt, which is as much as I'm going to give it. And then I'm going to understand where the bottom of that swing is. Understanding if I go past that, so if I tee my ball up forward, I'm understanding what the club face is doing and why it's such a problem for me. Let's see. I've got a feeling that went down the left again. It's slightly down the left, could feel that. But what's interesting, as soon as we get the ball in the correct position, then we start to see club path, face to path, become less wayward, more neutral. We're still not there by any means. And like I said about all of this, when we are, I think the biggest stress is we're going to have to do a lesson on how to get a ball on a tee. The biggest understanding and takeaway from this for me is recognizing that by altering ball position, I've neutralized the ball flight. So I've got neither a fade nor a hook. What we're doing is I'm slightly got a bit of a pull down that left-hand side, and we've got to work on that. Now I'm going to make one change, and this is my own personal change from what I have found during this drill. And that is that somewhere in the middle of all this, I feel a more comfortable position. I think that should be better. And that is better. Look at the club path. 0.8. Face to path again, that's the controlling of the actual club face itself. But that is a much better ball for me. Now, the question is what happened and what is different? Because this is testing the tips. This is me trying something and then reporting my findings to you. Not everything out there is going to suit your particular game, suit your swing. And what I found with this was by moving the ball between that forward position, so inside the left heel, I wanted to move that ball just a little bit further back. So I didn't go too far back, 4 or 5 inches, we're talking an inch further back, gave me a much more comfortable position, first of all on the tee, and it seemed to suit my club path, and I got much closer to that neutral position that I'd want to be in and hit the ball straight. So a lot of things to learn from this video in my opinion. I've just done a video on my main channel which talks about how golf YouTube tips can be hugely beneficial, but also you need to be careful at the same time. So we don't need to treat everything as gospel, and we do need to work it, and we need to work it within our own swings because we're all individuals and not one fits all. That's my takeaway from this. Great lesson, understanding where the centre of the swing is, understanding what your driver is doing. I certainly think the one negative for me is what you don't want to be doing is teeing that ball up away forward onto your front foot with a huge tilt backwards. That to me is the most negative impact it would have on my results. So next time you set up driver, if you find yourself in that position and you're hitting a big slice, I would think that's largely due to ball position. Move that ball back a little bit and see what impact it has. But for me, like I said, on a personal level, just moving it back a little bit further backwards than Dan suggested had a more positive impact. Anyway, that's me. I'm testing the tips. It's not a lesson from me, it's a lesson from Danny Maud. It's something for you to go and try, and I will carry on working with that and understanding what my club head is doing throughout the driver swing, and hopefully it means we get some better results. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you all soon.